Hello, it's Corbin, and welcome to Beyond D&D. Today we'll be discussing Changeling the Lost. Changeling the Lost is a standalone RPG in the Chronicles of Darkness setting, which centers around humans who were kidnapped and changed into half-fae or fairy beings called changelings. Please note that Changeling the Lost deals with many themes about trying to recover from trauma. If you're planning to run a Changeling game, you can lean into this as heavily or as not as you wish. Many people have equated the themes of Changeling the Lost with recovering from an abusive relationship, so please tread carefully. To clarify, I will only be covering Changeling the Lost 2nd Edition. I am not familiar with 1st Edition or the old World of Darkness gameline version called Changeling the Dreaming. Changelings were once human until they were taken by the True Fae, beings of immense power who rule over a world of imagination called Arcadia. The True Fae steal people because in Arcadia the True Fae have limitless power and cannot come up with anything that they can't anticipate. So they'll bring in humans to add a bit of that human free will. When a mortal is taken to Arcadia, their True Fae keeper will transform them into changelings. Most of the time this change is reflective of the changeling's personality, but this is not always the case. They can be turned into servants, animals, and even inanimate objects. Then they are given a job such as butler, guard dog, or even hairbrush. This change can also change a person's age or gender. The True Fae tend to treat changelings like playthings instead of people. Eventually, changelings may try to escape, and when they do, they'll go through the world that separates Arcadia from the mortal world. This is known as the Hedge. They may find time has passed differently as well. Some have been changelings for centuries, only to discover that a few days have passed in the real world. Changelings have a couple of supernatural powers to keep them hidden. There is the mask, which is a mortal face that only mortals and some other supernatural beings see. And then there's the mien, which is the changeling's form, which other changelings, true fae, huntsmen, and other creatures of the hedge can see through. When changelings arrive in the mortal world, they are usually greeted by a group of changelings known as a freehold, which are other changelings who've grouped themselves together to protect themselves from the true fae. Changelings usually form smaller groups called motleys, which are the equivalent of adventuring parties mixed with group therapy. A changeling seeming is essentially their race, and Kith is their class. I'll cover these in more detail later on. Courts are essentially political parties within the freehold. Weird is kind of like fate, but it's also how magically powerful your character is. Think of it like a class level. Glamour is emotional energy that changelings can harvest from mortal emotions and then use to power their contracts. And contracts are essentially magical spells that changelings can use. Changeling magic cannot affect iron, and specifically, cold iron actually damages changelings when they touch it. Seemings are broken down into 6 categories that have a lot of crossover, so it's not always apparent which seeming a changeling is. A beast may look like a dog person or a werewolf. They may even look like a vampire with elongated fangs, but otherwise look human. Darklings are creatures of shadow and night, and they might look like living shadows or demons. Elementals are not just elementals like earth, air, water, and fire, but they can also be like humanoid animated objects such as a hair comb, mirror, or sword. Fairies are typically a lot closer to like elves. They are stereotypically very beautiful. They're mostly attractive people, but they can even be pieces of fine art or maybe even a beautiful flower. Ogres are usually changelings built for brute strength. They may have the appearance of orcs, trolls, or golems. Wizened are usually tinkerers and often can be stereotyped as dwarves, hags, wizards, or other elderly type beings. I've rattled off a lot of stereotypes here, but please know that there is a lot of crossover. A werewolf type changeling could honestly be any one of these seemings pretty easily, depending on what theme you're leaning into. A show dog might be a ferist, whereas the big bad wolf might be an ogre. Kith is the job the True Fae gave you when you were in Arcadia, and this dictates some special abilities you may have. There are a lot of these to go over, so I'm only going to touch on this quickly. The book even has rules for creating your own custom Kith if your storyteller allows you to. The Kith gives you access to some more potent abilities, such as changing your physical appearance for mirror skins, having a bite that can pierce through almost anything for gristle grinders, or causing damage with just your touch, like a leech finger. Courts are part of a bargain freeholds make to keep their community hidden from the True Fae. The primary type of court I will be covering is the seasonal court, but there are others as well. The seasonal court is made up of the spring, summer, autumn, and winter courts. Whenever these seasons occur, that court's king or queen is in charge. This rotating leadership acts as a magical bargain that dictates how the True Fae can attack the freehold and its members. Each of the courts has its own theme based on the 5 stages of grief, with acceptance missing. Spring is based on denial. Stereotypically, they focus on indulging in their desires. During spring, the True Fae can only attack changelings who were their favorite. Summer is based on anger. Stereotypically, they focus on indulging their wrath. Think of them like the main warriors of a freehold. The True Fae cannot retreat during summer. Autumn is based on bargaining. Stereotypically, they focus on the emotion of fear. They are also known for being the court most likely to investigate other supernatural creatures. The True Fae must make an announcement preceding any attack during autumn. This time frame between announcement and attack is dependent on the severity of the attack. A big battle might need to be announced a month in advance. Winter is based on depression. Stereotypically, they focus on the emotion of sorrow. They are also known for being very secretive. Think of them like the spies of the freehold. The True Fae must mourn every person they kill during winter. If you want to change up your court structure, you can. There's nothing stopping you from creating your own court system. Courts are tied to a freehold and don't usually extend past the local level. Contracts are deals changelings make with the weird, and are kind of like spells. Every contract costs glamour to cast, but you can use a loophole to use the power for free instead. For example, the Mask of Superiority contract makes people think you are someone important within an organization. If you happen to be wearing the correct uniform, you will meet the loophole requirement and get to use that power for free. Glamour is harvested by feeding off of human emotions, such as making someone angry or being near someone who just lost a loved one. Contracts are broken down into 3 categories. Arcadian contracts, which are the most common types of contracts. Court contracts, which are limited to what court your changeling is in. And goblin contracts, which are powerful abilities that have a lot of strings attached to them. Using goblin contracts increases the amount of goblin debt a changeling has. The storyteller can use goblin debt to hinder the player's character, such as by giving them negatives on rolls. If a character gets too much goblin debt, they risk turning into a goblin, which loses them access to their court contracts and makes them stuck in the hedge. There's a lot more to it, but it's so rare to occur that I'll have to cover in a future video. While the True Fae are the main antagonists of Changeling, they aren't typically found in the mortal world. Instead, they will usually send huntsmen to capture and retrieve escaped changelings. Unlike other Fae beings, huntsmen use iron traps and cold iron weapons. The scariest thing is that they don't kill their targets typically. Instead, they'll kill those who get in their way. If you are the game master for Changeling the Lost, I highly recommend putting extra attention onto the freehold. It brings a lot of political intrigue that can help make the setting more lived in. Many people will say you should start your game with the escape from Arcadia, but I honestly have a different opinion. My counterargument is to start the players a couple of months after their escape. This allows for the players to skip role-playing out their character catching up with pop culture and current historical events. If you want to do that, though, feel free to do it. That's just my personal preference. A good starting mission for a new motley might be to perform some tasks for a freehold monarch, such as patrolling freehold territory or searching for freehold members who may have disappeared. If you want to check out a podcast that covers Changeling the Lost, I highly recommend the Littlebrook Reunion podcast that is on the Onyx Path YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Additionally, if you're looking for a TV show recommendation, I highly suggest Lost Girl. It really covers changeling society, or in this case, it's fairy society or fae society. It has a good storyline that covers a lot of political intrigue within this type of fairy community. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you liked, please hit the like button, and if you have any feedback, please leave a comment below. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a better understanding of Changeling the Lost now. Thank you so much and have a good one.